develop some basic security behaviors. And those involve, periodically doing research on critical emails that you use to see if they've been involved in breaches. It includes, only operating using a VPN, and I can go in on another article if you want on why that's important. It's creating the habits to keep everything that you have that's software-based updated on a regular basis, because a lot of the attacks that occur that are successful are executed against systems that have not been properly updated. Stuart and I were talking one day, and he brought up the issue of somebody walking into his dealership looking for a car that he never sold the car to, right? So, and he said that there was a website associated with that the guy was able to point out and say, hey, this is the website where I bought the car from. And so I said, hey, Stuart, I'll go ahead and, if you're up for it, we can do a little research. I had the team, what's called Antigua Recon that does cybersecurity here where I live. We can do a little digging and see if we can find out some information that will help you when you put the challenge to the website and the associated Facebook page when you file those complaints. And so what we did was, first thing I met with the team, and whenever you do this type of work, any type of cybersecurity work, you have to set what's called set the scope. And the reason you do that is you don't want to get into doing things that are unethical, and you don't want to do things that break anything. Sometimes we'll get paid to try to break somebody's web app or website. Well, great, that's the agreement, that's the scope. If we're doing that, no problem, because the concept of breaking is you're trying to find vulnerabilities to be able to then go back to the customer and say, hey, here are the vulnerabilities on your website or your web app that you need to plug, otherwise you're open to some type of violation. So set the scope. The scope was basically we're going to do some URL research. We're going to look up, try to find out what we could about the two URLs that were involved. There was one primary, and then the secondary URL that we found was when we followed a link from the website to their supposed Facebook page. There was another URL that was stamped on the images that were used of vehicles that were advertised on Facebook. So we dug into both, and then we then did for Stuart's help is in terms of the digging that we said, okay, we'll dig into the web. We'll go through the whole website too. That's the second thing, is go through the website and find cases where they were mimicking information from Arizona car sales. And then the third thing was to outline steps for removing a phishing website. So Stuart wouldn't have to, we would just turn over the information and say, hey, Stuart, here's the problem, tough luck. It was, Stuart, here's the problem, and here are the steps you can follow to make a challenge to the fake website. So for the research, URL research, we looked to see, okay, when was the URL filed and created? That domain name. Who was it with, and did they have, what type of privacy protection did they have on it? Hopefully it would be none, so we could, if there was a really stupid hacker, then we could find out who it was or some variation of that. They were smart enough though to use a standard privacy function. In this case, one that was out of Iceland, which is a little slim shady. We didn't dig into the actual registrar to see if they always use that privacy service, but there are sometimes separate privacy services. Sometimes domain name registrars use just a couple of them. Didn't check on that, but the point was it was an offshore registry service. And so we couldn't find out who it was, but we did find out the websites were created. The main website was created in 2022, and then the one that we discovered associated with the Facebook page was created in 2020. That one has since expired, the one that was on the Facebook page. But so we did that. We outlined that information for him, and then we dug into the actual website itself, and we found that there were constant references to Arizona car sales, but not as sales in Arizona, a variation of that, more as a name. So for example, Arizona car sales is also the place to find unbeatable deals, blah, 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 right? So they were playing on that name. They said they were in Mesa, Arizona, where Arizona car sales is from. They used the same address for Arizona car sales. So that was on the website. Their mission statement talks about Arizona car sales. And then what we also did to get a feel for some of the images of the people, that were listed as our team, we did something, used a tool called Google Lens. And Google Lens is a free tool that Google provides where you can upload an image and Google will do a matching of that image to other images that are the same or similar. And when we did that, we particularly started with this one individual on the team. Her name was Miss Melissa Doe, but she's a middle-aged Indian man. So I had to start with that just because I have a sense of humor. And we found out that that particular image was connected to a law firm and also connected to a real estate agency, which I doubt someone who might have, if those were real websites, why would you use a stock image for an individual that you give a name and everything else? So more than likely, it's the same type of mimicry that's being done for those two company websites. And, really from there, it's just detective work of digging through and finding a bunch of data that you can supply as a report to the company, in this case, Stuart's company, Arizona Car Sales, that he could then use to upload to Facebook and Google.
You see this with all social media. It's really easy to file a complaint. And like you're saying, if they meet the burden of proof or whatever it is, the documentation trail and administration is so cumbersome. I mean, from your article, I could tell how much work and effort actually went into collecting everything that you needed to collect it. And we also know the capabilities of social media and the digital world right now.
Yeah.
So it is unfortunate because it's definitely on purpose. And I'll say it, it is. It's obviously not a priority. If it was a priority, or even if it wasn't a priority, if it was just not pushed to the corner or to the wayside, like it would be dealt with. And I agree with you. And I do hope that action follows. And perhaps as this becomes more and more prevalent, it's really unfortunate that there are going to be sort of the early victims, both being the person purchasing the car and the dealership who's now having to be involved in this scam that has absolutely nothing to do with them. I think there are two victims here, and it's really unfortunate that until this becomes a bigger problem, probably nothing is going to happen. I'm a cynic myself. In your opinion, you've been in the auto business for 25 years. You work in cybersecurity as well. You have Antigua Recon, where you are doing skills development training for the community and people who are smart and want to further their education on the island. In your opinion, who really needs to read this article?
Definitely the car dealer audience, right? Because this is a clear example where there's been an assault on this car dealer. So as a it doesn't take rocket science to figure out other car dealers are going to be implicated, right? So I think that's important. I think pretty much anybody who owns a business needs to be aware of this. So, when you look at it, where the only thing I was surprised about, and I really shouldn't have been because I should be more jaded by now, was the incidence of fake sites is becoming more and more common. So, anything that's a shopping website where someone's going to spend money, someone's going to create a fake site to be able to capture some of the money, the millions and millions of dollars that are billions of dollars that are flowing through websites that sell stuff, right? So, when I did the work, I mean, there was a report that came out that said that there are 3 million new phishing websites in 2024. I mean, that's ridiculous. And, as you saw in the write-up, I talked about the Wisconsin DMV putting out warnings. And then I found some other states had put out warnings as well saying, hey, look, if you have a website that, in some of the cases they were talking about car dealers, but I think it's pretty much anybody. Keep your eyes open to see if there's a mimic site, a site mimicking your site. And one of the ways you can do that is look up your domain name, or look up the name of your company. So, so for example, in the case of Arizona Car Sales, if you put Arizona Car Sales in brackets on Google, see what comes up. You're going to have to scroll through a bunch of stuff related to you, because if you've been operating for a long time, that name is going to have a certain amount of resonance. But keep scrolling and see if anybody else pops up, and you want to take a look at that. That's something you might want to do on a Sunday morning with some coffee, right? So you're just relaxing and kicking back. But the problem's big. It's going to continue, because if there's money to be made, and there is money to be made, and money is being made, it will continue, and it will continue to get worse. Right now, I think a lot of people operate on the internet in a way that doesn't take into consideration the vulnerabilities and criminality that's on the internet. They might think okay, I have antivirus, so I'm good. It's more complicated than that, but it's the set of skills that you have learned over the years that if you live in a city, where not to walk when, how to walk, a whole bunch of stuff that you just do unconsciously because you learn those skills because they're survival skills if you run into a potentially difficult situation. And I think a lot of people should if you're on the internet and on the internet as a company, you should take the time to develop some basic security behaviors. So I think there's basic hygiene you just have to learn that a lot of company owners don't, and they think they have it because, my guy in IT handles it. No, and no. Because a lot of times the guy in IT is just paying attention to his IT work. You're the owner of the company. You need to get more versed in what you need to do to keep your company safe. And it's simple stuff. It's not rocket science.